guys, it's me, Paul. And today I'm going to be talking about a couple of the strange and interesting characters that I've encountered in my lifetime. Now, you may have been under the impression that I only associate myself with good and upstanding individuals, but actually, that isn't always the case. In fact, I have been quite the magnet for wackos and weirdos. To kick things off, I'll be telling an absolute classic story. Now, if you're a family member or a close friend of mine, then chances are you've heard this one before. This is the story of Gage Whitmer. Now, Gage was an interesting individual that I had the pleasure of attending middle school with. Gage was notable for two main reasons. Firstly, he was significantly older than everyone else in our grade, and secondly, this dude would have frequent rage-filled outbursts, usually directed at teachers and staff members. I remember this one time, I think it was in social studies class, where our teacher told Gage he wasn't allowed to play cool math games on his iPad. Gage got so angry about this that he attempted to hit the teacher by throwing his phone. He ended up missing, and his phone hit the wall and broke. So, you can sort of see the kind of guy we're dealing with here. But anyways, Gage's most memorable moment took place in PE class. Now, Gage was the kind of guy who took PE class way too seriously. The teacher would say something like, jog a few laps, and this dude would be breaking into a full-on sprint, absolutely dripping with sweat. So one day, we're in the weights room, and we're doing a deadlift, I think, and Gage, being the try-hard that he is, loaded the bar with an absolutely ridiculous amount of weight. It was obvious that there was no way he would be able to lift that much weight, but that didn't stop him from trying his hardest. Now, what happened next is something that is no doubt burned into the memory of everyone who was in that room. Gage proceeded to, how do I say this, lose control of his bowels very loudly. There ended up being a visible stain on the back of his pants. Now already it's a very embarrassing situation to be in, but it probably wouldn't have been so bad if he had just stepped into the bathroom, cleaned himself up, maybe found a replacement pair of pants, but that is not what he did. Instead, Gage made the unique and controversial decision of soaking his pants in the sink and then putting them back on, completely failing to remove the stain and proceeding to sit down in class like nothing happened. I would just like to reiterate that this guy, he really liked to act like he was tough. I guess the story of Gage Whitmer can serve as a sort of cautionary tale for the future generations. Now, moving along, the next person I would like to talk about is a man named Blake. I'm not sure what his last name was. I guess I never bothered to remember it. Now, me and Blake were co-workers at Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy. He was a large fellow with long hair and glasses, probably in his late 20s, and in my time working with him, he underwent what can only be described as a villain arc. When I first met Blake, he was a very jovial and goofy individual. He had a very high-pitched voice, and most of our interactions involved him excitedly greeting me with an Elmo impression, or just saying random things out of nowhere, in an Elmo impression. Oh, and the Elmo impression wasn't just exclusive to me, no, he would use it while taking customers' orders as well, usually resulting in an alarmed or confused reaction. But one day, all of this completely changed out of nowhere. You see, there were some high school boys who started working at Brahms, and they would regularly roast Blake and mess with him. So this was sort of the inciting incident of Blake's villain arc, where overnight he started acting completely different. Blake started acting really emo. He would try to talk in a deep voice, and he would tell me about random martial arts techniques. Like, this dude would just come up to me out of nowhere and say something like, I could probably take you down in one blow if I aimed for the right spot on your neck. There was also the knives that he would bring to work and show off to me. Or he would tell me about like how he got into a knife fight or whatever. I think it was pretty obvious he was just trying to put up some sort of tough guy persona because he had felt emasculated by these kids bullying him. Now, I just want to clarify, I almost never talked to this dude. He would just come up to me out of nowhere and start talking. One time, I remember Blake coming up to me out of nowhere. And he came up behind me in the area where the hallway area where the fryers are. And he was telling me about one of his knives or whatever. And this dude was holding it out right in front of him. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if I had suddenly backed up. Honestly, I might not be here to tell this story. But anyways, one day Blake was tasked with showing the ropes to a new employee. Now this new employee was a girl, probably pretty young. So traditionally when you're teaching stuff to a new employee who you don't know, it's a very professional and no-nonsense sort of deal. Not with Blake though. For whatever reason, Blake, who I'll remind you was probably in his late 20s, thought it would be a good idea to start bragging to this girl about how he was a local TikTok micro-influencer. Then he proceeded to pull out his phone and show her a video on his TikTok account, which he played very loudly at work to a person he had never met. Now, the video Blake was showing this girl is what is referred to in the TikTok community as a thirst trap. I remember seeing the video out of the corner of my eye. It was this black and white video of him lip syncing to some really edgy music, from an anime most likely. And I remember Blake saying something like, "I made this video after my girlfriend dumped me. She told me I was worthless." And the girl just being like, "Oh, okay." Now, it's safe to say that in this moment, the amount of cringe and secondhand embarrassment that entered my body was nearly lethal, and I am lucky to have survived. Now, the last guy I would like to talk about is a guy named Michael. Now, me and Michael interacted a lot last year because we were both members of HCC's Communications Club. In fact, this guy still attends HCC today. Anyways, Michael seemed like the kind of guy who enjoyed partaking in various recreational substances. At first when I met him, he seemed like a fairly average guy, but as time went on, his behavior became increasingly bizarre. I remember this one Communications Club meeting where we were talking about our future goals or something like that, and this dude Michael started talking about how he was going to build a rocket ship and fly to the moon. Our instructor thought he was just joking, but as he continued talking, it became clear that he was 100% serious about this goal. Michael's most bonkers moment took place at the Communications Club Open Mic Night, an event that me and the other members of the Communications Club hosted last year, where students could come up and give speeches or sing or whatever. Now, leading up to this event, Michael had been talking about how he was going to perform some of his freestyle rap at the Open Mic Night. And you better believe that when the day of the Open Mic Night came around, this dude gave a performance. At the very end of the night, Michael said he was ready to perform. He pulled up some rap beats on YouTube and proceeded to deliver some of the most unhinged freestyle rap I have ever had the pleasure of witnessing. Now, Michael's first mistake was that he waited until the very end to perform. At this point, it was getting pretty late, and all of the other college students in the audience had left, meaning the only people in the audience were parents and grandparents. Not exactly the intended audience for rap music, especially not the kind of rap music that Michael was delivering. I remember when I looked out at the audience, I could see that none of them had any clue how to react to this, and most of them just looked really uncomfortable and awkward. Michael rapped for about 4 minutes before his YouTube backing track ended. Now, you think he would have just called it a night after that, but instead, he insists that he wants to give an encore performance. I don't think anyone in that room wanted this dude to continue, but obviously, we couldn't just tell him no. Afterwards, when I was heading back to the dorms with Michael, he asked me to give him some constructive criticism about how he could improve his flow. Obviously there was a lot that I could say, but I ended up just telling him that maybe he could consider projecting his voice more and enunciating his words more clearly. Now, I thought I had given some pretty tame criticism, but apparently what I said had set him off. And Michael started to get very worked up, talking about how it wasn't his fault and it was all because of the speaker system that was making him sound bad. I just questioned why he even asked me in the first place. So yeah, those are just a few of the goofy and wacky individuals that I've met in my life. Honestly, this is kind of only just scratching the surface. There are so many weirdos that I've met that I could probably talk for hours and still forget to mention a couple people. But I think I'll just leave it there. Now, if there's some sort of takeaway to be had from this, I think I would just encourage everyone to have more self-awareness and think about how you look to the people around you. Is what you're doing actually cool, or are you just making a fool of yourself? But anyways, this is Paul signing off. I'll catch you guys later.